And now on Rough Diamond Radio, Part 8 of Hengist's Inheritance.
Chapter 43. Entering the kitchen, Mabel, Pringle, and a worried-looking Harriet still sat at the table, but now there was also an army officer present. A silver candelabra, its 5 candles illuminated the scene. "Ah, Hengist, find what you wanted in Sir Tarquin's Egyptian memorabilia, I hope," inquired Pringle ad-libbing. "Indeed I did, Mr. Pringle," Hengist replied. "Hengist, may I introduce Captain Fanshawe," Pringle continued. "He calls each evening currently, to inform us of any development with the presence of our army guests. Today he came bearing gifts," he pointed to a green field telephone sitting on a side. "Its wire running from it, out of the window." "Apparently," Pringle explained, "for security reasons each and every one who now comes to Plumley Hall has to be vetted. Part of that is to call us here, to verify if we know or are expecting said visitor." "That was just a subterfuge. I come for the tea and biscuits," Captain Fanshawe joked. "Is that a fact, Captain?" Mabel said, laughing. "Indeed, dear lady, indeed," Captain Fanshawe confirmed. Hengist approached Captain Fanshawe, holding out his hand. "Pleased to meet you, Captain." "Likewise, Hengist," Captain Fanshawe said, shaking Hengist's hand. "You've been busy over the last few days. How many personnel do you have under your command here at the moment, Captain?" Harriet asked. 36, I believe at the moment." "A great responsibility." "Yes, indeed, Hengist." "I must say, Captain Fanshawe, I have no idea what your work entails, but it looks impressive, I must say," Hengist said. "I'm about to conduct my evening inspection. Would you care to accompany me?" Fanshawe inquired of Hengist. "Is that allowed, Captain?" asked Harriet. "There's nothing top secret here, Mrs. Grump. It's a simple light anti-aircraft battery. And as Hengist here is, as you informed me, a member of the LRP of Wallop-on-Sea, there's no problem." "I'd like that, Captain," said Hengist. "Well, shall we go then, sir?" "When you like, Captain." Hengist looked at Harriet. "I shan't be too long, darling." Captain Fanshawe took a torch out of his pocket and then left the kitchen. As they walked, with the small handheld torch barely illuminated their path, Hengist asked, "So you said this is a light anti-aircraft battery. I take it that you shoot down aeroplanes?" "If we can hit them. It's more difficult than you might think." "I imagine so." As they approached the first sandbagged gun emplacement, Captain Fanshawe said, "This is the business end of the battery, Hengist. It's a twin-barreled 40mm L6 Bofors gun. It has a crew of 5 and can fire 160 rounds a minute up to an altitude of 12,000 feet. That is, if Corporal Williams here can feed the 4-round clips into the hopper that quick. Isn't that right, Corporal?" "Yes, sir," came the reply from a gloomy figure in the gun pit. They continued their way past ammo dumps, numerous vehicles, each of which purpose was explained. On reaching the mess tent, Hengist asked, "What's the food like, Captain?" "Bloody terrible, if you must know, Hengist," both men laughed. Finally, they stopped at the command truck. "And this is my domain, where all the decisions are made." Turning to the duty signaller sitting at a trestle table lit by a tiny bare bulb, Fanshawe asked, "Anything to report, Evans?" "No, sir, all quiet," came the reply. "Good man. Captain, one thing I've been wondering. How do you know what to shoot at? I mean, planes fly fast, and by the time you see them they must be gone." "Yes, I can see how you would think that, but there are 2 ways we identify targets. One is messages from regimental HQ via radio or more often field telephone, telling us of approaching aircraft's height and direction, so we have an idea what to look for and where. So when they arrive, we're ready for them. The second way is more basic. We use our own observation posts, like the one over there. Simply we see them, and try and shoot them down. Fanshawe pointed to a couple of men looking out over the sea from the hall's tower parapet wall. But how do you know it's not one of ours you're shooting at? If an observation post report a sighting and there is time, we call HQ, who have a list of friendly aircraft in the area. But if there is no time, we rely on good old visual aircraft identification. All the men are constantly drilled and trained to identify all aircraft friend and foe. Well, it's all being very interesting, Captain. But I'd better be getting my wife home now. Thank you for the tour, Hengist said, shaking Fanshawe's hand. My pleasure, Mr. Grump. Hengist made his way very gingerly through the blackness, back to the hall's kitchen. Harriet ran up to her husband as he entered. What's happening? You were gone ages, Harriet exclaimed. Hengist slumped down in a chair. I want to go home, he said. What happened? What did you find out? Harriet pushed. Can we talk about it at home, Petal? I'm wiped out. You okay, son? Pringle asked. Yeah, but I take it you three also forgot what day it is today. Today's Wednesday, Hengist, Mabel said. Yes, and what happens in the East Wing on Wednesdays? The penny dropped. Harriet held her hand to her mouth. Mabel let her jaw drop. God, what happened? Pringle asked. I don't want to talk about it, but I will say, I've never seen anything like it in my life. In regards to what I went there for, I found out a few things, like they may be moving the coins on next week, so whatever we're doing to do, it has to be done soon. And Mr. Pringle, if I was you, I'd have the Plumley Estates accounts inspected, as I heard that there might be some underhand dealings happening there. Like what, Hengist? Don't know, but they said something about Plumley creaming off the top. Hengist stood up, said to the Pringles. I'll be in touch tomorrow, folks. Thanks for your help, turning to Harriet added, let's go home, sweetheart. The bike ride back home was a further ordeal, due to the blackout. They had to make their way down the pitch-black country lanes, and on through the town with only moonlight, and a small slit in the bike headlight screen to illuminate the way. But finally, they sat in their own sitting room. Nobby had been fed and let out for his evening toilet, and was now back asleep in front of the fire. Harriet had lit it on their return. Only when Hengist was settled in his chair, with a bottle of beer in his hand, did Harriet think it wise to bring up the hot subject. So what happened, darling? Well, I found out where the coins are and I know how to open the hiding place. And as I've said, we have a week to get them back. What about the visit from the certain lady? Ladies? What? There was 2 of them? Shelby was there too, so I guess they called for reinforcements. Hengist told the full story. The outfits, the spanking, the pony trekking, and when he got to the bit with the rubber phallus, he winced and shifted in his seat. You mean she? Yep. God help us. I tell you, Harriet, some of the things I saw tonight, I can't believe were even possible. Well, it's late, so let's worry about it tomorrow. I've made some stew, it's in the cupboard, I'll warm some up for supper if you like. That'll be lovely, sweetheart. Harriet left the room to prepare the meal. When she returned 15 minutes later to call her husband to the table, she found Hengist standing just staring out of the window. Darling, are you all right? Just thinking, my sweet. Food ready, pet? Yes, darling. The stew quickly eaten, they then made their way upstairs. Chapter 44. Harriet woke up the following morning, alone in bed. Realizing her husband wasn't next to her, she sat up with a start. She was about to go downstairs, when Hengist entered the bedroom with a cup of tea in both hands. Here you go, my sweet, he said, handing her one of the cups. I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd do the honors this morning. Ta, Harriet said, taking a sip of the tea. Well, last night was something else, he said. Hengist, what are you going to do for that young girl, Doris? I feel so sorry for her. And Pringle and Mabel, we have to do something about that Ronald Plumley, he's making their life a misery. And those coins what? Hang on. Bloody hell, we've only just woken up. But we can't let them get away with it. No, we can't, I agree, so I've been thinking. Oh yes? What has Fagin come up with this time? Nothing yet, but I have a couple ideas, Hengist admitted. Well? You better get your thinking cap on, as we've only got 6 days in which to do it. We know where the coins are, and we know where to sell them if we can get hold of them. We have Alf, Pringle, Mabel, and Dorcas Fake willing to help us. It's a start, I suppose, Harriet said. We also know that Ronald Plumley and Shelby have peculiar sexual preferences. We also know where and when and with whom they indulge themselves. Good point, sweetheart. Talking about sexual preferences, budge over and put your tea down, said Hengist as he took his shirt off and got back into bed. Harriet giggled. Hengist? I've things to do. Yes, and I know what things. The couple spent the next hour in connubial bliss. When they had concluded their debauchery, Hengist said, Do you know what I fancy, Harriet? I thought you just had it. Hengist smiled. A pie and a pint at the Wheatie for lunch. Yummy, that'll be a rare treat. We could call and see if Rosie fancies joining us. Harriet realized an ulterior motive when she heard one. That's a great idea, but what are you thinking now? I think I know how we're going to get those coins back. And it involves Rosie, Harriet asked. Yes. If she will help, that is. Let's go ask her on the way to the Wheatsheaf. As they approached Rosie's home, they could see her in the front garden picking something up off the lawn. How's tricks then, my sweetheart? Hengist called out. Bastard, came the reply. Charming. Oh, not you two. That bloody cat from next door keeps shitting on my lawn. I swear if I catch it, it'll make an appearance in next year's Wimbledon, as a racket. We're off to the Wheatie for a pie and a pint, fancy coming? My treat. Yeah, sounds lovely, thank you, and what do you want? Hengist knew when he'd been rumbled. I'll explain over lunch, he said. Very mysterious, I must say. Entering the Wheatie, Hengist approached the bar as the girls took their seats by the window. 3 pie and 3 pints if you please, Jeff. Mushy peas? Of course. Coming up, young man. Hengist returned to the girls' table. So, to what do I owe this lovely surprise? Hengist has had a windfall, Harriet started. That's nice for him, Rosie said. But somebody has stolen it. Stolen what? Oh hell, it's a long-winded story, I don't know where to start, Hengist said. Try the beginning, Rosie suggested. He did, only pausing when the pies and drinks turned up. As the last of the pies were washed down with the last of the beer, Hengist concluded his story. So, I want those coins back, and I was wondering if you're up to helping me getting them? Doing what? Hengist told her. On hearing what Hengist had planned, Harriet exclaimed. You didn't tell me that bit. Sorry, darling, didn't I? It must have slipped my mind. No, you bloody well didn't. Slipped your mind, be damned. I'm so sorry, Rosie. I didn't know he was going to ask you to do that. Hengist, you should be ashamed of even thinking of asking Rosie to do that. Rosie just smiled. I'll do it, she said. You'll do it. Rosie, you don't, you shouldn't. Bloody hell, Harriet run out of words. It may be fun, Rosie explained. Do you have any idea how boring it is for me at the moment? The high point of my day is picking up the cat shit of the lawn, so I'll do it. Another pint, girls? Hengist asked. After 2 more pints, Hengist and Harriet walked Rosie home. Then made their way back to Kettle Terrace. As they walked, Harriet said, I know what you've got planned for Rosie. But what is the plan that you've come up with, Fagin? Will you stop calling me bloody Fagin? I'll stop calling you Fagin when you stop corrupting our friends into committing crimes. Anyway, what's the plan? The way I see it, getting the coins back isn't too much of a problem. It's keeping them that's the hard bit. How do you mean? Surely he stole them off, you just need to steal them back. Sell them and pocket the money. First thing, if we just steal the coins back, how long will it take them, do you think, to work out who stole them? Not long, Harriet admitted. And Ronald Plumley, with his power and influence, being the brother of Sir Tarquin, and sitting on the bench at the magistrate's court, to say nothing of Shelby being a crooked solicitor, they could make our lives hell. And given what we know about them, I can't see them just walking away if we steal the coins back. No, when we steal them coins back, we need them to be 100% convinced that someone else has done the deed, or make it that coming after us would be so detrimental for them, they daren't even entertain the thought of doing so. Yes, I see your point, Harriet agreed. But I know what we're doing now. You do? There's a few small bits I have to work out in my head, but... Yes, I know what we're doing and when. When? Wednesday, when the next weekly visit is on. And what has Fagin got me down to do for his master plan? Well, since you ask, I think it's a good idea to be prepared if things go wrong. So I want you to stay here, and if there's trouble, call this number. Hengist took out of his pocket the card Mr. Greenfield had given him. Is that all? Harriet said, disappointed. So far, my sweet, yes. Hengist patted Harriet's backside in apology. Then said, I need to speak to Solly about getting me a few things that we're going to need. Back at home, Hengist called Solly's number and was soon through to him. Hi, Solly. Afternoon, Hengist, everything okay? Capital, Solly, listen, I need you to source some items for me by Wednesday morning. These items are? Hengist read out the list. When he'd finished, Solly said, the first few are no problem, bizarre but no problem. The last one might take some doing. Solly, I'm sure you can do it. Well, I do know a bloke who could, but it's short notice. He charges for that. That's okay. I take it that my credit is still in the black with that coin I left you with. Oh yes, that's not a problem. There is one more thing. Oh yes. I want you to arrange a meeting for me with Simpson and Minge for Wednesday at 10 a.m. That not going to be easy. Hengist, these people are not to be messed with. People disappear. So I heard. Tell them I would like to discuss a failing on their part which has caused me financial loss, along with possible repercussions to their reputation. That should do it. Bloody hell, I'm not telling them that. It's fine, Solly. Just make clear you're simply the messenger, and I'll deal with the rest. I bloody hope you know what you're doing. I take it this is to do with those coins. Sort of. And on that point, if all goes well, you can start looking for buyers Thursday morning. Thursday morning. I'm way ahead of you there, young man. I've already found a buyer for 10 of them, should they become available, and I've had inquiries for the rest. Also, there may be a way of generating a plausible paper trail that will provide us with an irrefutable providence for the coins that might even double their worth. You really are as good as people say you are then, Solly. I try my best, Hengist. Look, I'll have the items you asked for ready for pickup Wednesday morning, but are you sure you want this meeting with Simpson and Minge? Yes, please, if you could arrange it. Well, you have been warned, I'll call you back. Thank you, Solly. Half-hour later, Solly called back. You meeting is with Mr. Greenfield at 10 a.m. at their office. They weren't best pleased. I really hope you know what you're doing. Thank you, Solly. See you Wednesday then. They both hung up. Chapter 45. Over the next few days, Hengist started to put his plan into action. He called in to see Mabel and Pringle, and explained their part in the plan. Like Harriet, they too were disappointed, but more than willing to take part. Is that all you want us to do, Hengist? Mabel asked. Yes, Mabel, that's all. No point making it complicated, is it? Simple is best. I suppose not, the old housekeeper reluctantly admitted. I was hoping you want us to poison him or something. Well, if my plan doesn't work, I'll bear it in mind, Mabel, said Hengist, smiling. And all this is planned for this Wednesday? Pringle asked. Yes, Mr. Pringle, are you okay with that? Sooner the better, he answered. Hengist's next call was to Dorcas Fake at the post office. Sitting down over a cup of tea, Hengist asked if what he hoped to do was possible. Dorcas smiled. Yes, it's fairly simple, mind you, it's all down to Alf and Rosie. Can they pull it off? Well, we'll find out Wednesday, I guess. One more thing, Hengist asked. The number that Plumley bloke calls each Wednesday, can we find out the name of the person? I mean, the number must be registered to someone. Dorcas smiled again. I'm ahead of you, Hengist. The phone line is registered to a Margaret Ponsonby, of 23 Weasel Street, Frambourne. Well done, Mrs. Fake, you are a star. Hengist called to see Alf, on the way to the pub Saturday night. After the pleasantries with his mum were completed, Hengist asked Alf. You still okay for Wednesday, mate? Looking forward to it, Sunbeam? Hengist went through what Alf had to do. And I'll get you your equipment to you before Rosie picks you up, so you can check it over. Fine, then joking added, don't forget the backup plan. I'm working on it, Alf. Hengist made his way to the Wheat Chief, where Harriet and Rosie were waiting for him. Alf okay? Rosie asked. Yeah, he's fine. You know what you two are doing? Let's see if I can remember, Harriet said. Oh yes, sitting on my backside waiting to make a phone call if things go wrong. Don't worry, darling, Rosie said. I know what to do and when. Hengist picked up his glass and said, Here's to Wednesday. All three repeated. Wednesday. Chapter 46. Wednesday morning arrived cold and bright. Hengist had been awake since 6 a.m., lying in bed going over the plans for the day. Harriet turned over and sleepily asked, What time is it, darling? Time, Hengist repeated. Yes, what time is it? Hengist smiled. It's show time, he said, getting out of bed. Harriet turned back over with a muttered, Shit. Having skipped breakfast as so not to be late, Hengist had ridden the 35 miles into London and was outside Solly's shop just after 9. On seeing Hengist, Solly ushered him into the gloomy back office. Morning, creeper, Hengist said into the gloom. Morning, Hengist, came a reply from the darkness. So, Hengist, you're going for it then, Solly said. It seems like the thing to do, Solly. You have what I asked for? Of course, Hengist. Solly leant over, pushed a large bag towards Hengist. They arrived from Chinatown over the weekend. These he placed 2 expensive-looking leather cases onto the desk. These are state-of-the-art, Hengist, and bloody expensive, so if they aren't returned within the week, it's going to cost you. How do I use them? Solly opened the smaller case and removed what was obviously a camera, but not like anything Hengist had seen before. This Hengist is Kodak Bantam Special, a camera that you can take up to 8 photos without changing a plate. You just look through there. Solly pointed out a small glass plate. Then turn this until what you want a photo of is in focus, then press this button. All you do to take another photo is wind this knob until it clicks. And that's it. And that one, Hengist asked of the larger case. Ah yes, this is the Devay Cine camera. It can take up to 10 minutes of film. To use it, all you have to do is wind this handle to charge the spring inside, focus using this lever, then pull the trigger to start filming. Simple. And I've already loaded both with film, so you ready to go. That's great, Solly. As Hengist placed the cameras back into their cases, he noticed some writing on one. Solly, it says property of the BBC on this. As I said, they have to be back within the week, or it's going to cost you. The other items you asked for were surprisingly easy to source, and they are in the bag. That's great. What's the damage, Solly? Hengist, I've totaled up your account, and you started off with that one coin that we agreed a value on after my percentage of £150. I've totaled up the costs so far and you have a balance left of £109. But if those cameras get lost or broken, that goes down to £38. I can give you that now if you like, and the rest when the cameras are returned. No, you hang on to it. I might need something else before this is over. As you wish, Hengist. Solly looked at his watch. Just a tip, Hengist, don't be late to your meeting with Simpson and Minge. They're funny about that. Thank you, Solly. Hopefully I'll see you in a couple of days with some more coins. Bye, Creeper. Bye, Hengist came from the darkness. He went on his way, arriving outside Simpson and Minge with 15 minutes to spare. Removing his overalls and helmet, straightened this suit and tie. Hengist then walked through the large oak brass-encrusted door of Simpson and Minge, and up to the reception desk behind which sat a beautiful young woman. Hello. I have an appointment with a Mr. Greenfield, Hengist explained. The receptionist consulted a sheet of paper, then smiled up at Hengist. Please take a seat, Mr. Grump. I'll let Mr. Greenfield know you're here. Thank you, miss. Hengist crossed the room to a chair and sat down. The receptionist wiggled her way out of the room to inform her employer. Hengist picked up a copy of the Times newspaper off the coffee table in front of him, and started idly flicking through it while he waited. Reaching the court news section, a couple of grainy photos caught his eye. The photos were the typical black and white, slightly out of focus ones found in newsprint. One showed a plump elderly woman exiting a shiny white Bentley motorcar, while its door was held open by a uniformed doorman. The other one showed the same elderly woman dressed in an expensive fur coat, walking up some stone steps to a house. The headline above the photos proclaimed, "Lady Tavistock returns to London from Kenya." Hengist folded the paper so as to be able to read the newsprint easier. Lady Jennifer Tavistock returns home to Mayfair this week after the tragic death last month of her husband, Lord Tavistock, while on safari. Lord Tavistock was killed when he confronted a rogue elephant who was threatening the vehicle he was in. Lord Tavistock reportedly put up a stout defense, but succumbed when the elephant sat on him. Lady Tavistock has on her return taken up residence at the family's London home at Winchester Mews W1. Hengist sat back in his chair. So that's Lady Tavistock, he thought. He then straightened out the paper and placed it back on the table just as the door opened and the Wiggle re-entered the room. Holding the door open, she said, "Mr. Grump, Mr. Greenfield will see you now. Please follow me if you would be so kind." Hengist followed the Wiggle through the door, down a corridor, up a flight of stairs, along another corridor, then stopped at a nondescript door. She knocked twice. On hearing, "Come in," she opened the door for Hengist to enter. The room was furnished with 2 plush armchairs, separated by a low table, and a well-stocked drinks trolley against one wall. One of the chairs was occupied by a fat bald man dressed pristinely in a tailored 3-piece pinstriped suit. He was consulting a gold Hunter pocket watch. Clicking the watch shut, he placed it back into his waistcoat pocket. "So nice of you to be on time, Mr. Grump. I feel punctuality is a courtesy that is sadly lacking by many these days. Please take a seat. And may I introduce you to Mr. Joshua and Mr. Tree." Hengist turned around to face 2 tall, muscular men, sporting a very serious and severe expressions. When Hengist was seated, Mr. Greenfield continued, "Now, Mr. Grump, I understand you have information pertaining to a breach of confidentiality you suffered in regards to a service we supplied to a third party." "That's one way to put it, Mr. Greenfield." There was a silence in the room, then Mr. Greenfield said, "Well, I'm listening, Mr. Grump." "Oh yes, sorry. I understand that Simpson and Minge deal with, how can I put it, unorthodox and sensitive legal situations, and the confidentiality of such dealings is second to none." "That is quite true, Mr. Grump." "Sadly not in my case, Mr. Greenfield. In what way, may I ask? Simpson and Minge were instructed by a third person to ensure a confidential letter was delivered to me. This letter contained very sensitive and lucrative information. However, the person you employed to deliver it opened the sealed envelope and went on to use the information in it to relieve me of the lucrative outcome. And I felt that this should be brought to your attention. Indeed, yes, Mr. Grump. Mr. Greenfield looked slightly uncomfortable. I took the liberty of looking into this matter before our meeting, so I am aware of the request through a Mr. O'Hare for information a few days ago, and the arrangement made to the mutual benefit of both parties. So I was a bit perturbed by the subsequent request for this meeting. And I must point out, Mr. Grump, Mr. Greenfield's voice took on a slightly menacing tone, that compensation for this matter is out of the question. Hengist was expecting this approach, and just looked straight at Mr. Greenfield, who continued. And to pursue such a course of action, or indeed making this oversight public knowledge, may have unfortunate repercussions. Hengist heard Mr. Joshua shuffle his feet behind. Let me assure you, Mr. Greenfield, I have no intention of making this situation public. And a course of action is already in motion to recover my property, so compensation is not an issue. My aim in coming here today was purely to inform you of the situation and allow you to safeguard yourself against the situation in the future. However, I was hoping we could have a mutual exchange of information. Hengist heard more shuffling from behind. Mr. Greenfield leant back in his chair and, crossing his arms over his expansive belly, said, "Oh yes. I make you aware of the person responsible for this stain on your reputation, and you let me have any further info you have on the person who instigated the letter sent to me. You can understand, I'm certain, my need to keep details of this situation private." "Indeed I do, Mr. Grump. And I realize that confidentiality is very important in this matter, but it may help you to balance my request if I tell you the lady has now passed away." Mr. Greenfield just looked at Mr. Joshua and nodded. Mr. Joshua silently left the room. "Mr. Grump, we know the company involved, but it would help us if you have a name of the miscreant. We can of course find out this for ourselves, but it would save time, I'm sure you understand." "Of course. His name is Shelby. I'm not aware of his Christian name." "Thank you, Mr. Grump. Please accept our gratitude in bringing this issue to our attention. I also give you my assurance the appropriate action will be taken to make sure such a thing never happens again." "That's good to hear, Mr. Greenfield. Anything else we can help with, Mr. Grump, while Mr. Joshua looks into the other matter?" "Ah yes, just a trifling point. When I recover my property, I will require help. How can I put it?" Mr. Greenfield smiled. He was on familiar ground here. "Dispersing the assets to minimize liabilities," he said. "Precisely. I'm sure that can be arranged. Now may I ask you a question, Mr. Grump?" "Ask away." "Who undertakes your legal representation at this present time?" "There is a vacancy for that post at the moment." Mr. Greenfield smiled and produced a business card, handing it to Hengist. "Should you require legal assistance day or night, call this number. We would be pleased to help, Mr. Grump. I believe you are just the type of client who would benefit from using Simpson and Minge." "Thank you, I'll do that, Mr. Greenfield." The door reopened, and Mr. Joshua returned with a small file which he handed to his boss. Silence filled the room as he read through the pages. "Well, there's not a lot to tell, Mr. Grump. Mrs. Tatler approached us with a sealed letter with instructions on how and when it was to be delivered, and that's it." Mr. Joshua coughed and approached Mr. Greenfield and whispered in his ear. "Apparently Mr. Grump, one of the secretaries, remembers the old lady, because she looked close to death's door, requiring the help of her daughter to get up the steps. And at one point the old lady was so close to passing out, she required a glass of water." "Her daughter. Is that a problem?" No, nothing like that. Unfortunately, that's all we have, Mr. Grump. I do hope it is of use to you. Indeed it is, Mr. Greenfield. One last thing. I'm surprised that you undertook such a small, insignificant commission. Very astute of you, Mr. Grump. Normally we wouldn't have. We undertook the work only because we had in the past had several lucrative dealings with the widow's late husband, who was well known in certain circles before his death. Can't say I've heard of a Mr. Tatler. No, Mrs. Tatler reverted to her maiden name after her husband's death. Her husband's name was Nathan Yap. The meeting concluded with handshakes and pleasantries, and Hengist left the building. Stopping on the pavement, he looked up to the heaven and said, "Nathan Yap's bloody wife and daughter." Across the road from Simpson and Minge was a large and busy post office. Hengist considered his options for a second or two, then said to himself, "Well, it's a long shot, but in for a penny, in for a pound." Hengist crossed the road and entered the post office. 10 minutes later he left, his task completed. Well, next stop for Wellbrook Crescent, he thought. Arriving at the house, he rode the motorbike combination straight up the drive close to the door. Knocking the door, he was surprised when it was opened by Miss Tatler without any fuss. "Oh, it's you again?" "Yes, it is me again, but this time I'd like to speak to Miss Yap." "There is no Miss Yap here." "Look, I'm short on time, so I'll cut it short. I know your mother's married name was Yap and you are her daughter, so in my book that makes you Miss Yap. I told you I know nothing about any letter. Strange, because my information is that you accompanied your mother when she arranged my letter's delivery. I don't know anything about your letter. Josephine, I also know that your father may well be responsible for my father's death. So I'm intrigued why the mother and daughter of the man some believe is responsible for my father's death is sending me a fake letter that proclaims to be from a man who died years before. Look, Hengist, I've told you several times now, I know nothing about your letter. I'm sorry to hear that Josephine and I don't have time to discuss it now. But you have my address and telephone number if you change your mind about telling me what you know. But I'm not giving up until I find the truth. I wish you all the best in your quest, Hengist, Josephine said, closing the door. Hengist drove back to Wallop-on-Sea and home, calling at Alf's and dropping off a large bag with some wooden poles on the way. Chapter 47. Rosie and Alf walked into the post office bang on time. Dorcas Fake was waiting for them. "Come on through, you two, and make yourself comfortable." When they were seated, Dorcas Fake closed the door to the telephone switchboard room. "Things are all ready to go. He made the call to arrange his weekly visit an hour ago, as I said he would, so it's now up to you two. You first, Alf, I think. Do you know what to say?" "I suppose so," said Alf. "I'll have to wing it a bit though, no doubt." Dorcas plugged several leads into the telephone exchange panel. "Ready, Alf?" "Yep." Dorcas pushed a last lead into the switchboard, and a ringtone started in Alf's handset. On the fourth ring it was answered. "Hello. Is that Miss Ponsonby?" "Yes, it is." "Miss Margaret Ponsonby?" "Yes, who is this?" "I'm Detective Inspector Dawes of the Frambourne CID. "Oh. Am I correct, Miss Ponsonby, you live at 23 Weasel Street, Frambourne?" "Yes, that is correct." "I'll cut to the chase, if I may, Miss Ponsonby. Frambourne CID are aware of your profession. We are also aware you have an appointment with one Ronald Plumley of Plumley Hall at 8 o'clock this evening." "How could you Alf didn't let her finish. "However, we also believe you are unaware of the illegal, if not treasonous activities going on there." "Treasonous activities? I know nothing about that." Margaret started to panic. "You could get hung for treason." "That remains to be seen, Miss Ponsonby." "Oh. The reason you have even been approached in regards to this matter, Miss, is for operational necessity, which I am not at liberty to divulge at this time." We require you to call and cancel the meeting for later today. We also would like you to inform him you have arranged for a friend to contact him to take your place for his appointment. What if he doesn't want a replacement? Ronald has different tastes than most. We know all about his taste, Miss Ponsonby. You do? Oh yes. And remember, it's in your interest to convince him to accept the replacement. It'll go well for you should this come to court. So hang up and call him now. Remember, Miss Ponsonby. We'll be listening in, so no funny business. I will call you again when your call has ended. Is it clear what we expect you to do? Yes, Inspector. Okay, hang up and make the call. Dorcas pulled the lead out, and the handset went dead. Okay, now we wait. Dorcas didn't have to wait too long, as the call came through within 2 minutes. Putting you through, caller, she said. Ronald Plumley came on the line. Ronald, is that you? It's Margaret here. Hello, Margaret, nothing wrong, is there? No. No? Well, yes, I must cancel our meeting this evening, my darling. My mother has called to say she needs me this evening to help her settle my dad down, as he's had one of his turns again. He's not got pissed and tried to hump next door's dog for a bet again, has he? No, just a normal funny turn, that's all. Oh, shame, and I was so feeling in the mood to. All is not lost, Ronald. I have a friend who may be able to accommodate you this evening. Lisa? No, her name is Jeanette. She said she'd call you as soon as she knows she's free. Is that okay? Well, there's no substitute for Mistress Margaret, but I'll give it a go. That's the attitude. I've got to get going, Ronald. Sorry about tonight. No problem, old girl. See you next week. The lines clicked and went dead. Ready to call her back, Alf, said Doris. Yeah, ready. Alf picked up a handset. Dorcas plugged in a few leads, and Alf heard the line ringing. Yes. Well done, Miss Ponsonby. That was very acceptable. Now we will continue to monitor this line, along with Ronald Plumley's, should you try and contact him again. I won't, Inspector. I do hope that's the case, Miss Ponsonby, as that would be very foolish on your part. I'll be in touch should you be needed as a witness when this goes to court. Witness? That may well be the case. Oh God. Well, thank you, Miss Ponsonby, for your assistance with this matter. Should you need, I can be contacted at Frambourne CID. Good afternoon. Afternoon, Inspector. Again, the line clicked and went dead. All three in the room gave a sigh of relief. Well, that went well, I think, Alf said. Okay, on with the next call in a minute. But first I need to pee, Dorcas said, getting up and leaving to relieve herself. Returning 5 minutes later. That's better. Ready, Rosie? No, but I'll give it a try, Mrs. Fake. Leads connected, and the phone started to ring again. Plumley came on the line. Hello, is that Ronald? Asked Rosie in the best sultry tone she could muster. It was very impressive. Yes, my dear, it is, Plumley confirmed. Well, Ronald, a close friend asked me to call as you might require female company tonight. And so I do, dear lady. So I do. At Plumley Hall, I'm told. Is that correct, Ronald? Yes, that is correct, my girl. My friend has also informed me of your preferences, Ronald. I will arrive at 7:30. Be prepared to submit to my every whim. Yes, mistress, but may I be so rude and ask at what cost? Rosie felt the panic rising. What the fuck does such a visit cost? Reverting into character came to her rescue. You will be severely punished for your insolence. Your mistress will accept a reimbursement of the same amount that Mistress Margaret receives. In that case, I will look forward to serving you, mistress, at 7:30 this evening in the East Wing. That is up the drive, turn left through the arch to the stables, and I'll be waiting at the French windows, mistress. Until then, slave. Rosie gestured for Dorcas to cut the connection. She pulled a lead and the line went dead. Bloody hell, that was close, Rosie said. You did great, Rosie said. Alf. If you say so. Best I get off, I have things to do. You're picking me up 5:45, Rosie, is that right? Alf inquired. Yes, Alf. I'll see you then. Rosie relaxed back into her seat. Mrs. Fake, any chance of a cuppa? Yes, my dear, I get us a pot, you've earned it. Pringle and Mabel sat at the kitchen table. Mabel sewing a couple of buttons on one of her husband's shirts. Pringle looking through 3 large account ledgers taken from the study. Found anything yet, sweetheart? Mabel asked. Pringle sat back in his chair. It would help if I knew what I was looking for. Hengist said something about creaming off the top, didn't he? Yes. But I'm not sure what that means, Pringle admitted. I think it means that he is taking money off the profits. Let me have a look. She put her sewing down, walked around the table, and leant over Pringle's shoulder. So what do we have, she asked. Well, this ledger records all the monies the Plumley estate receive in each month. This one, he tapped one of the ledgers, records all the money paid out, expenses and such each month. And this one is the profit and loss account ledger. It combines both in and out figures, giving you a balance and summary for each month. Let's start there then, Mabel said. Pringle placed the profit and loss ledger on top of the other 2. They spent the next 10 minutes fruitlessly scanning columns of figures. Then Mabel had an idea. Darling, if there is money being, as he said, creamed off, there would be less profits, right? I suppose so, yes. And Ronald Plumley had to start at some point. Well, yes, obviously. So we should be looking for a month where the profits dropped, and only from the time he returned from South Africa. Good thinking, my girl. 5 minutes later, they found what they were looking for. I think I've got it, darling, Pringle said. In the 6 months up to the end of May, the average monthly profit was £2,505. Okay. But the average for June, July, and August was £2,376. That's an average drop of £129. So we have to look for a payment for about £129, starting in June, and here it is. He stabbed the ledger with a bony finger. Payment made on June 6th to RP Limited for £125. There are no previous payments to this company, and there is one each month since. It says it's for financial and investment advice. That's it, I'm sure. He's paying himself each month a fee direct from the estate's coffers. Pringle looked up to the ceiling. How did I miss this? Miss what, darling? RP Limited? Ronald Plumley Limited. Bloody hell, you've got it. Teamwork, old girl, teamwork. What do we do now that we know what he's up to? Mabel asked. Well, we must inform Sir Tarquin, of course. What now? No, we'll do it when we go up at 7:30 p.m. It will give us a reason to go up there in the first place. I do hope we're doing the right thing, darling, with all this. Oh, I have no doubt we're doing the right thing. Ronald Plumley deserves whatever he damn well gets. What bothers me is, will we get away with it? Get away with what, though? Hengist told us all we have to do is answer the phone to confirm any visitors with the guards at the gate. Also be with Sir Tarquin between 7:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. to make sure he stays out of the way and safe. But safe from what? I have no idea, but he did say not to worry if things get noisy. Just answer the phone and sit with Sir Tarquin for 30 minutes at 7:30 sharp. What could possibly go wrong? I do wish you hadn't said that, Mabel. Then, as if the gods of fate had heard them, the Greenfield telephone started to ring. Pringle walked over and lifted the handset. Hello, Pringle here. Yes, good afternoon, Sergeant. You have someone with you at the gate. WHO. Jesus Christ, Sergeant, let her through immediately. Yes, we know her. For God's sake, stop talking to me and let her through, man. Pringle slammed the phone down and started for the door, pulling his tie straight and brushing himself down as he went. Who is it? Mabel asked, panic in her voice. Lady Tavistock. Lady Tavistock is at the gate and is coming here, now. Mabel shot out of her seat, ripped her apron off, threw it onto the table, and rushed after her husband. They reached the large double door that made up the main entrance to Plumley Hall. Pausing for a moment to compose themselves, Pringle looked at his wife. Ready, love? He asked. She nodded. Pringle opened the door and stepped out onto the perron. Mabel followed him. They watched as a white Bentley convertible sports car drove sedately up the drive, coming to a halt in front of the perron's steps. The car's door was flung open, and a plump white-haired lady got out and walked up the 3 steps to the door. Your ladyship, this is such a pleasurable surprise, Pringle said. Lovely to see you again, Mr. Pringle. Mabel, you're looking well and a sight for sore eyes, it's been far too long. Mabel bobbed a small curtsy. Thank you, milady. No need to stand on ceremony, Mabel, we go back too far. Yes, milady, Mabel said again, but this time without the curtsy. So what's this all about? Lady Tavistock asked, receiving only puzzled expressions in reply. You did send the telegram about Sir Tarquin? No, milady. I wanted to contact you so many times, but no, Mabel said. There's a chill in the air, could we go inside, do you think? Lady Tavistock said, pulling her fur coat tighter. Of course, of course. Your ladyship, this way, please, Pringle said, pushing the door open and stepping aside for Lady Tavistock to enter. If your ladyship would be so kind to wait in the drawing room. I'll notify Sir Tarquin of your arrival straight away, and have coffee brought to you as soon as possible. Lady Tavistock ignored the request. So you know nothing about any telegram, and you're not worried about Sir Tarquin? Mabel answered first. Yes and no, milady. Mabel? No. I know nothing about any telegram, milady, but yes, I am dreadfully fearful for Sir Tarquin. He gets worse each day. What have the doctors said is wrong with him? They say there's nothing wrong with him, milady. He seems to have just given up on life. Where is he now? Lady Tavistock asked. I'll go and notify him of your arrival. Where is he now? Lady Tavistock repeated, in a tone perfected by years of dealing with servants and tradesmen. It was a kind and polite tone of voice that made the question more of a request. But it made clear to the person it was directed at that it would be in their best interest not to fuck with Lady Tavistock. He's in his bedroom in the West Wing, milady. Would you like me to show you up? Mabel said. Thank you, there's no need, Mabel. It's been a few years, I know, but I'm sure I can find my way there again. Lady Tavistock started up the stairs, instructing Pringle as she went that she required a pot of coffee as soon as was convenient. Lady Tavistock, on reaching the landing, turned left down the corridor that led to the West Wing. What in hell is happening, Algy? And what are we going to do now? Mabel asked her husband. Make the coffee and take it up, what else? No. What are we going to do about? She dropped her voice to a whisper. What's planned for later? We don't know what is planned for later, do we? We just answer the phone and look after Sir Tarquin, and that's our job anyway. But what we do know is Lady Tavistock has asked for some coffee, so we'll start with that. As they walked back into the kitchen, Mabel said, By the way, when did you send that telegram? You should have told me you were doing it, you know, darling. I never sent the telegram, Mabel. I thought you had. Mabel just shook her head. What is going on? Pringle muttered. The coffee tray was soon prepared, along with a plate of scones with small pots of jam and cream. Ready, sweetheart? Pringle asked. You carry the coffee, I'll bring the scones. Reaching Sir Tarquin's bedroom, Pringle lightly knocked on the door. Lady Tavistock opened it. Ah. Thank you, Pringle. Oh, and we have some of Mabel's delightful scones. I'm sure they are as wonderful as I remember. Pringle and Mabel placed the trays onto a table. Sir Tarquin sat on the side of the bed. He looked up and smiled at them. Could you run a bath for Sir Tarquin, please, Pringle? Straight away, your ladyship, he answered. And Mabel? Yes, m'lady. Could you rustle up a razor, a comb, and a pair of scissors if you would be so kind? Yes, m'lady. Mabel and Pringle made to leave, to carry out the instructions when Lady Tavistock called them back. One more thing, if you please. Yes, your ladyship? There's a case in the car, could you bring it in, please? The keys are in the ignition, should you need them, Pringle. Certainty, your ladyship, Pringle confirmed. I'll prepare your room presently, m'lady, Mabel said. That'll not be necessary, Mabel. Just bring the case here. I'll be staying here with Sir Tarquin tonight. A look passed between the women. Yes, m'lady. It will be my pleasure. Outside in the corridor, Pringle turned one way towards the bathroom to run Sir Tarquin's bath. Mabel turned the other way to source the items Lady Tavistock had requested, skipping like a schoolgirl down the corridor as she went. Mabel returned first, knocking the door, then on receiving a come-in, she entered. Lady Tavistock was sitting on the side of the bed next Sir Tarquin. Just put them down on the table over there, Mabel, thank you. As she placed the tray down, Pringle appeared. Your bath is ready, Sir Tarquin. There are fresh towels, and more hot water if your lordship requires. Will you require me to shave, or shall you do it yourself? It was Lady Tavistock who answered. Thank you, Pringle, but you will not be required to shave his lordship. I will undertake that duty. But if you could lay out a set of clean clothes, that would be appreciated. Certainly, your ladyship. And Mabel? Yes, m'lady. You may serve dinner in here tonight. Yes, m'lady. Nothing fancy, Mabel, just something wholesome and filling. Yes, m'lady. I have one of Sir Tarquin's favorites in the larder. Beef and ale pie, if that is suitable. Indeed it is. I think a bottle of Sir Tarquin's best claret, to accompany the pie, would be in order. I'll leave dessert to you. Would dinner at 7:30 suit, m'lady? Mabel asked. 7:30 would be fine, Mabel. Pringle finished laying the set of clothes out, then said, Is there anything else your ladyship requires? No, not at the moment, thank you, Pringle. I'll ring if I need anything. The Pringles left and made their way back to the kitchen, as Lady Tavistock led Sir Tarquin to his bath. Back in the kitchen, Pringle looked at the clock on the wall. God, it's 4:30.